Yep. Hey everyone, this is Delta Peng again from Pentech. And let's see, the next topic for our quick start to programming video set is what is an object. Okay, so let's see. An object is, okay, we mentioned again, when you create, we're in the digital world again, pretend, and you create things like variables, it can contain one thing of data, right? Or you can create things like an array, which can hold multiple items of data of the same type. So this kind of thing. I know it's a bit, let's see. Array of data with numbers. Remember, zero based index. So the first item is 0, 1. The second item, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's the number minus 1 because it starts on 0. So you can have either an array or a single item for your variables. But what happens when instead of something like, something nice like a number, something simple, or something like a string, right? You could stick that in the container. But what happens when you have something more complex, like this little buddy? Like what happens when you have something more complex inside your container? It's like, how do you define this thing? It's like, it'd be very useful if we could package something like this and then send it off somewhere else, right? Because like you can only do so much with numbers and strings and booleans of true, false values or decimals. But like if you could package something like this and then send it to someone else, who wouldn't want someone like this? It'd be great. You could do so much more and have so much more potential. But how would you do that? So that's what an object, that's kind of like, this is like an object. And so it's trying to put something in that's more complex than a simple data type. But then how would you describe that? And how would you use that in your code? And that's the thing we're going to talk about next. All right, back to the computer screen. Let's see. Okay. So to do this, typically you would have something called JSON to describe the object. So what is an object? It's a thing that can contain, it describes something more complex than, again, like a string or a number. And it can contain not only other like variables, or in this case they call them like properties. It can contain things like the functions that use the properties as well. So like it could contain like the calc result function inside that object, and also like the variables like varnum 1, 2. It can contain this array if it wants to, and like the function that uses it. Okay, so just so you know, it can contain, I'm not sure if I have a good practical example at the moment, but it can contain both of those things. But let's take a look. Yeah, then this is and then some of this is per waiter. Sorry. Pretend that doesn't exist. All right, so what is JSON? Here is basically a list of JSON, an example of JSON. So to kind of simplify it, JSON right here. This is a single object. So you can see it's like basically this is like just a notation, a way to describe it. So you have curly braces, and then everything inside, is the different properties of it, or characteristics, or basically properties. And so it's key value pairs, which means it's like, these are all just like key, some describer, and then some value. And then if you have multiple, okay, you need a comma or else it'll complain. See? So all these down here are just key value pairs. All right. And so it's like kind of like that dinosaur, or in this case, or like my Delta Penguin video game character in essence. So one object is okay, what's his name? Okay, Delta Peng. What about the address 1 and 2? Okay, here's some data, and then I assume this is Alaska. I may have messed up, but Alaska we'll say. And then things like, okay, fur color, age, not my actual age, but pretend, and then this example I'm using, it's like, okay, this is pretending this is data for the DMV. And so like the Department of Motorized Vehicles, where you go to get your license plate, driver's registration, things like that. So, okay, real world data, or like a business application, what kind of object would you create that's like a practical example of how you would, or what kind of data exists out there? And so it could either be something like this. So, okay, this is something, a record they might use. Or like if I was trying to describe like the object, the little dinosaur guy that I put in, I could be like, okay, it's dinosaur, the color is light blue. Nope, I'll change the screen real quick just so you can remember. So I could be like, okay, this dinosaur, is probably male, light blue, personality, fun-loving, party animal, let's see, number of spines 4, stuff like that, or eye color gray or black. So there's any number of things I could use to describe this character, like weight is maybe okay, light, or more specific, like okay, weight's half a pound or something like that. And, height is 7 inches, or however you want to manage it. Or if he was on sale, the little plush guy, if he's like, okay, maybe like price $7, or something like that. And it all kind of just depends on how much data you want to capture and how much of it is useful for whatever program or application or website that you're trying to create. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to press Control-Z multiple times, Control-Z, Control-Z, Control-Z. Okay, trying to get back to, cool. So I undid some changes. So now instead of just one object, I'm getting 2 objects. And how do I do that? I put it inside of array. Okay, so this is an object. I'm describing it in this format. I'm describing it in is called JSON. And this is, takes some time to get used to, but it's useful. But once you get it, it's pretty simple. Just name, and then what is the value? Name, what is the value? Name, what is the value? And this is useful because JSON data is what usually is usually the format that you'll get from websites. So behind the scenes, when you do something like, let's say, when you go to YouTube or something. So when I go to youtube.com, what is this? What is this? What is this? But basically, it's I go to youtube.com, and then it gives me some JSON data back that fills in the website. For example, like HTML, that's basically HTML and JavaScript is what's used to create the website itself, and it's like the format. It's like the buttons and the interactivity. Like, okay, it's the color is changing when I mouse over it. But it's kind of like a template. So maybe it has like 6 video spots, and then it waits for the data to come in the form of JSON. And then once it comes in, then it can fill out these items. From there, it's like if I click on this item here, it knows where to go. Like if you check the link, this link changed, right? Because this is the URL for this specific video. But when I go back to the original, whoops, it it's just youtube.com. And so one of the data that's passed in, it's like, okay, the data that's passed in is like the picture, the thumbnail, the picture. Let's see what else we can see. There's like, okay, the title, you could say it's the YouTube channel. Looks like they pass in data for how many views, how long ago it was, whether it's like a live stream. So all that data is being passed in basically as behind the scenes as JSON. So if it was YouTube, it would be something like, video name, maybe like the thumbnail data, views equals, 22,000, date created 1 year ago. And so just, different format, but it's different values and keys, but the same format. You kind of see how they would piece together, or how that fits together. Hopefully so. If not, maybe more. It'll make more sense as you go. All right, let me see. Anything else for this guy? Okay. I forget how much of this I explained in this video, and then how much might be a different video. Okay, so this is the data that comes in. This is 2 objects in an array. So the array is, see these square brackets again? Square brackets, the curly brackets are, the objects themselves. So let's say this is a real world application. So some program at the DMV, and let's say they're and these two, this is data of people coming in, and these people coming in, these penguins, are trying to figure out, are trying to get their driver's license. And so, okay, the DMV computers load up, they get this data, and then from this data, they have to determine who, what should the program do? Should we register this user for a driver's license? And if not, why not? And that's a good segue into our next video about conditional logic. So I'll see you there.